Located on a Malaysian island sits Forest City, a now seemingly failed mega project. I did a video on Forest City about 10 months ago and I wanted to do a 2024 update. I did find this article that was from a few months ago, Forest City, inside Malaysia's Chinese-built ghost city. Such a curious mega project that was honestly due to go abandoned. The whole idea of building a city incorporated into a forest almost, with just a ridiculous amount of greenery, so much so it's like the greenness is growing through the walls. It gives an extremely abandoned, ghostly, weird, eerie vibe. So I guess it kind of fits that this mega project city never actually really happened. It's a ghost city. Now, the story that I found talks about a 30-year-old IT engineer who moved to Forest City. It was considered a sprawling Chinese-built housing complex on the tip of southern Malaysia. He already had enough. He didn't want to continue living in what he called a ghost town. Quote, "I didn't care about my deposit. I didn't care about the money. I just had to get out." Later saying, "I'm getting goosebumps just being back." Now, what makes this abandoned mega city so unique not only is the ridiculous amount of sprawling greenery, but also the fact that many of these developments that have been built on this city were recently done. This is a project that's not even 20 years old at this point, originally announced and planned back in 2006. A lot of the development is still ongoing, and what a curious design for those apartment blocks, although that's normally how they're done in Asian countries, and specifically in the East in general, those kind of bigger, clunky, concrete-looking apartment blocks that are surrounding the entire island. The plan was to build an eco-friendly metropolis featuring a golf course, water park, offices, bars, and restaurants. Well, that seems kind of like an understatement. I mean, they wanted to build an entire city. The company said Forest City would eventually be home to nearly 1 million people, and it's kind of ironic considering the idea of this project was to be eco-friendly and green and introduce greenery to cities like we've never seen before. But the project has been criticized for negative environmental impact, with critics claiming that this project has caused irreversible damage of sensitive coastal wetlands. Another thing that makes Forest City very eerie is the disturbingly low amount of nightlife, with many of the people that have lived there saying there's virtually no lights on at night. They've basically just built a bunch of these apartment complexes on an island and asked people to move there, and it has not worked out. Now, of course, at this point, you cannot fully say this development was a failure. You do have a lead developer coming out early last year and saying it's not a failed project, and the project was always supposed to take until 2035 to be officially complete. And with more and more city planners wanting to develop greenery into their cities, you do have to wonder if Forest City can potentially make a comeback after a bumpy start. However, I will say there does become a bit of an overkill when it comes to the amount of greenery you have in a city. You're going to be dealing with a lot of bug problems when you have this amount of greenery infested into your city, and many of the local people that have lived there have reported mosquito problems. This project has been hit with numerous hurdles, the first being the newly imposed Chinese law, which limits people a $50,000 annual cap on how much buyers can spend outside of their country, and the fact that this was mainly targeted at upper Chinese middle-class citizens who were looking for affordable coastline living. You can understand the issue. This project was tedious from the start, and it was dealt another serious blow in 2020 when the pandemic happened, which in turn caused many to label this city as a ghost city as of 2022. The official cost of the development of Forest City, anywhere from $80 to $100 billion. This article recently coming out talks about the city of the future and the fact that there are no signs of life, and they talk about the interesting building practices to actually build up this island, saying that it's not exactly Eden. There are also ecological concerns surrounding Forest City. A lot of sand, enough to build the islands, was placed into the ocean quickly, in spite of the technological innovations used to reclaim and build sand dumped on mud seabed needs more than the publicized time to settle. So they possibly built all of these developments on top of land that was not yet settled. They basically created their own land and own beaches like you see in Dubai by dumping a bunch of sand in an area and then building off of that. Whether or not this city does end up getting off the ground remains to be seen, but at this point it seems fairly obvious that it has been stifled by the new Chinese law that limits the amount of land that can be bought in foreign countries, because this is Malaysia and their target was Chinese citizens looking for cheaper, affordable coastline. That was the whole idea behind an Eden, and the fact that Forest City was something completely different, almost like a tropical getaway with all of the plants. You know, this island itself is very ironic to me, considering whenever I see greenery infused into cities, to me it comes off as almost abandoned. Well, they infused greenery into what honestly always was an abandoned city. There was never any really development here in terms of nightlife, in terms of a lot of people. I did see the water park that they were talking so much about, and even the water park has seemingly plants growing out from the trees and intertangled. It is pretty remarkable. You know, there's those photos of the unveiling of that huge model showcasing the entire city and how grand it was supposed to be, the vision going all the way back to the early 2000s. You look at a city like that and you think, yeah, this is honestly what a futuristic city probably looks like. A large emphasis on greenery. You do have to wonder, will another country try something like this? Obviously, right now, this has not worked out for Malaysia due to a number of reasons, but just in general, it's so exotic and it is such a clear attempt at kind of building your own man-made forest city, if you will, considering they also used sand to build the islands as well. Imagine them trying to do something like this in the United States. I'm not exactly sure if the climate in the United States is right for this, if there's any area that this would fit, but it is an interesting idea. As for a 2024 update, we sit in virtually the same spot we were in 2023, with this development still stagnating at this point, and with the developer coming out and saying the project will not be finished until 2035. We probably do have at least a few more years of them trying to infuse life into this project, especially after the pandemic, and also the other issues with China and their economy after the pandemic, how that was handled. That's going to have a debilitating effect to this project, considering the whole idea of this island development was to appeal to Chinese citizens. Not only do you have the new law coming out that Chinese citizens can't purchase over $50,000 worth of land outside of their own country, but you also have the debilitating effects of the pandemic. And if you think it was bad, what happened to the Western economy, what happened to China? They're dealing with a deflation even worse that has completely debilitated this project and the idea of Chinese citizens buying land in Malaysia on this island, on this forest city. We will see what happens either way, guys. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.